Have you ever wondered why McLaren let an almost assured victory slip away in Qatar while all the other teams stopped under the safety car? Was it really just a bad tactical decision, or is there something much deeper behind it? What Nico Rosberg has just revealed changes everything. Qatar 2025. A warm night, a technical circuit, and a championship in the balance. Oscar Piastri comfortably leads the Grand Prix, followed by Max Verstappen and Lando Norris with solid pace, ready to consolidate McLaren's dominance. Everything indicated that the Woking team had a golden opportunity to seal a 1-2 on one of the routes that best suited its MCL39, a car born to punish fast corners and maximize aerodynamic performance. But then, it happened. Lap 7 became the breaking point. A contact between Nico Hülkenberg and Pierre Gasly at the rear of the group forces the safety car to be deployed. This is where everything changes, because the conditions imposed by the FIA and Pirelli for this weekend were unique. For safety reasons, a maximum of 25 laps per set of tires had been established. It didn't matter if the laps were at race pace, under the virtual safety car, or even behind the safety car. Everyone, without exception, had to make at least 2 mandatory stops in the 57 laps that the race lasted. This limit turned the safety car window on lap 7 into a strategic gift. It was what everyone was waiting for, the perfect moment to get rid of the first pit stop without losing valuable time. They knew it at Red Bull, they knew it at Mercedes, they knew it at Williams, they knew it at Haas. And they executed it without hesitation. Max Verstappen, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Carlos Sainz, even drivers from the back of the grid like Albon or Tsunoda, they were all called to the pits. Most teams executed clean, fast, effective stops. They left with a free track and more than decent positions for the rest of the race. But not McLaren. In a decision that left engineers, journalists and analysts alike cold, the wall commanded by Andrea Stella and Zak Brown chose to keep their 2 cars on the track. Both Piastri and Norris continued to ride behind the safety car while the rest of the peloton followed the most logical strategy. For a few seconds, even Haas made the same mistake, but they immediately rectified it and stopped a lap later. McLaren didn't do it. They didn't rectify it. They didn't react. They bet everything on a card that was not even on the table. The direct consequence was devastating. All the cars that had stopped under the safety car transformed the race into a kind of split sprint. 2 symmetrical stints with fresh tires and no traffic ahead. Meanwhile, McLaren condemned its drivers to make 2 stops under the green flag. In simple terms, while everyone saved between 10 and 13 seconds thanks to the neutralization, Piastri and Norris would have to make up for it later, with dirty air, traffic and wear and tear. On a circuit like Losail, with high-speed sectors and areas where slipstream hurts more than it helps, this decision was competitive suicide. And the numbers confirmed it in the end. The advantage that Max Verstappen gained with his early stop under the safety car was, basically, the exact difference with which he crossed the finish line first. An 8-second margin over Piastri, which would have been neutralized if McLaren had stopped with the rest. But beyond the mathematics, what was experienced at that moment was a total disconnection between the pace on the track clearly in favor of McLaren and the ability to react on the wall. All signs pointed to this being the moment. All the data supported a different decision. All direct competitors did what needed to be done. Only McLaren was left in a tactical limbo that no one, not even its drivers, managed to understand at the time. And there, at that exact moment, Qatar went from being the consecration of the MCL39 to one of the most painful strategic defeats in recent years. After the race, the cameras were pointed directly at the faces on the McLaren wall. There was no room for detours, no room for vague excuses. The question was direct. Why didn't they stop under the safety car? Andrea Stella, team principal, and Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren Racing, took responsibility with a clarity that is not always common in Formula One. They did not blame the drivers. They did not blame the radio confusion. They did not allege technical problems. What they said was, perhaps even more troubling, the decision was completely intentional. According to Stella, the reasoning was strategic. The team had built a mental scenario that did not come true. In their vision, not all the cars would enter the pits on that lap 7. They expected a tactical division, a kind of range of decisions where they, by staying on the track, would maintain the leading position and, in addition, would gain flexibility to attack in the second half of the race. In his head, it was a controlled bet. But that bet was based on a misreading of the real context. They did not anticipate that absolutely all teams, including mid-table and bottom-of-the-grid teams, would understand that the safety car on lap 7 was the best and perhaps only window to comply with Pirelli's regulations without sacrificing time. That flexibility that McLaren was looking for became a death trap, because although they kept the track clean for a while, they were condemned to 2 full stops ahead, and all without the temporary cushion that their rivals would have. Stella also mentioned another key factor, the risk of performing a double pit stop, the famous double stack. The idea of calling Piastri and Norris at the same time meant that Lando, as the second car, could wait in the pit lane while Oscar completed his stop. In a scenario where every second counts, losing time stopped in the pits could mean falling behind drivers like Antonelli or Sainz. And on a circuit where dirty air and DRS do not guarantee overtaking, that loss was seen as an unaffordable risk. Will Joseph, Lando Norris' career engineer, was also an active part of this vision. Over the radio, he explained to his driver that staying on the track would give them a strategic advantage later, thanks to an offset in tire wear. That is, with fresher tires in the last turns, they could attack more worn rivals. On paper, it sounds logical. In the reality of Qatar, it was a fantasy. Zak Brown, for his part, adopted an even more self-deprecating tone. He called the decision a big mistake. He admitted that they gave the victory to Verstappen. He was transparent in saying that the failure came from the wall, not from the pilots. But the most striking thing was what happened when Nico Rosberg confronted him on television. The world champion asked him directly if the decision had anything to do with McLaren's commitment to treating its 2 drivers as equals. The response was quick but revealing. Brown denied there was an attempt to favor one over the other. But that same gesture, not wanting to appear partial, not wanting to make a decision that would sacrifice oneself to benefit the team, is precisely what Rosberg and other analysts point out as McLaren's Achilles heel. A noble philosophy that can become lethal at the critical moment. Because while it is admirable to give equal opportunities to both drivers, in Formula One there is not always room for democracy. Sometimes you have to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. And McLaren, trying not to harm either, lost with both. Rosberg, in his analysis after the Grand Prix, did not limit himself to criticizing the decision not to stop under the safety car. It went much further. He pointed out with surgical precision that McLaren's true Achilles heel was not an isolated tactical error, but a paralysis generated by its absolute commitment to an internal policy of equality. What he called an obsession with keeping Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris as co-leaders, in perfect parity within the team. And that word obsession changes everything. Because when a team turns its internal equity into an unwavering principle, it runs the risk of not reacting in real time when the situation demands an asymmetric decision. Rosberg explained it like this: on that lap 7, it was obvious that we had to stop. If you couldn't double stack, you sacrificed one and prioritized the other. That's what this sport is like. Sometimes you make difficult decisions for the good of the team. But McLaren didn't want to compromise anyone, and ended up compromising himself. What Nico was revealing was not just technical criticism. It was a veiled accusation that McLaren does not, at the moment, have the killer instinct that defines champions. In his words, there was the tacit comparison with teams like Mercedes or Red Bull, where in decisive moments, decisions are made without hesitation, even though they hurt, even if they are unpopular. And what aggravates the situation even more is the recent context. McLaren arrived in Qatar under immense pressure. They had been disqualified in Las Vegas due to a technical irregularity. They had been criticized for management errors. And they knew that this Grand Prix was a golden opportunity to consolidate their leadership in the constructors and place one of their drivers at the head of the championship. That pressure, according to Rosberg, not only did not make them more aggressive, but it made them conservative, paralyzed, afraid of making mistakes, but also afraid of making decisions that might seem unfair. Ultimately, what Rosberg revealed was a dilemma that goes beyond a race. McLaren has built a structure that values internal balance over immediate results. And that, in theory, is admirable. But Formula One does not reward equity, reward efficiency. And in Qatar, efficiency required choice. One had to stop. One had to sacrifice oneself. And nobody did it. What this race leaves behind, according to Rosberg, is a painful lesson. A warning. A team can have the best car. You can have 2 brilliant pilots. It can even dominate in performance. But if you can't decide quickly, if you fear breaking the internal balance at the crucial moment, you won't win championships. And that is the most uncomfortable truth that Rosberg exposed. It's not just that McLaren failed. The thing is that their own internal code left them without tools to avoid it. After everything that happened in Qatar, after everything we heard from Stella, Brown, and Rosberg, the question is inevitable. To what extent should a team go to maintain equality between drivers? But in championship conditions, when you are fighting against Max Verstappen, against Mercedes, against Ferrari, can a team afford not to choose? Can a team really allow itself to lose a race just because it doesn't want to make one of its two drivers uncomfortable? Do you think McLaren should continue betting on absolute equality? Or is it time for you to start making tough decisions, even if it means breaking internal harmony? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.